Hello, YouTube and valued viewers. Byron at Splitting Slices. Welcome back to the Knife and EDC channel. Today is Saturday, July 11th, 2026, and that means it's time to do one of our videos, the sixth video in a series of 10 that is being called hashtag 10 by 10 Knives. Now, this is an open tag response started by Knife Chats with Tobias. The object and goals: show 10 knives, one a day for 10 consecutive days, and talk about them around 10 minutes. So let's get into it. The sixth knife in my series is going to be the first of a series of 3 current releases, more to come in the future, of what are being called the PPP Club Knives. Now, PPP refers to this shamrock 3-leafed clover tang stamp that has a P on each leaf and stands for, of course, Paddy's Potato Peelers. Now, Stephen, or better known as Paddy in our circles, has had a YouTube channel for nearly 10 years and has talked about his knife collecting and different knives that he has discovered over his course of collecting knives, his entire life, and has had a great channel. Focuses primarily on traditional pocket knives, but occasionally will pick up a modern folder, and he has a few of his favorites. You can see all of these on his YouTube channel. But Paddy wanted to basically start trying to design some knives. And he wanted to work with one of his favorite knife makers there in Sheffield, England, Arthur Wright and Sons, to have these manufactured for him, and specifically for his group of friends that he calls the Paddy Pals group, which has really grown to a small knife collectors group, both here in the States, in England, and across the world. And this is his series of design knives. Now, the first one we are looking at here is known as the Tackler. Now, it is built on what I would call the traditional swayback style frame. So the frame or handle of the knife slightly curves up and away from the blade, and it has a Wharncliffe style blade. Now, I would call this a Wharncliffe over a sheepsfoot because that edge is completely straight. Okay, there's no bellied curvature to that blade. It has a nice sharp swoop from the top of the knife spine all the way down to the tip, but more importantly, it has a completely straight edge cutting surface or cutting edge on that blade, and so I would call this a Wharncliffe style blade. Notice that it would not be either a lamb's foot nor a ram's foot, because basically the height of the knife starting here at the curvature down to the tip is the same height as at the tang. And so this would just be a standard Wharncliffe style traditional blade shape with a swayback frame. All right, and has been given the name the Tackler, and I do think that refers to, say, the tack or metal and leather work for bridles and such, and saddles for the equestrian industry. So, the Tackler. This may also refer to the fishing sports, where you would need a knife to produce tackle, bait and tackle for fishing. So, take your pick. Either way, it's a sportsman style knife, and is a first in a series of knives that will be known as the PPP Club Knives. All right, let's give you some additional specs on this. We'll set this knife down, put it here next to the ruler, and we can tell you that the overall length of this knife runs about 6 3/8. You have approximately a 2 3/4 inch long blade of C70 or 01 tool steel. I believe it is C70. Now, C70, the equivalent in American terms would be a 1070 carbon steel. You have a crescent-shaped nail nick that starts there really at the midpoint down the spine and goes to basically where the spine sweeps down to the tip. So a crescent or half moon shaped nail nick on that. You have approximately a 3 3/8 inch long blade, or pardon me, a handle length on this. All right. And the construction, you will see, is a standard traditional style pocket knife construction. We have a steel frame with brass liners that line that carbon steel spring. And we have three-pinned brass construction of the Ekki wood scales on both sides. Now, there is a G10 plastic liner that goes between the brass liners and those Ekki wood covers for the knife. And I imagine they are epoxied together, and then the whole sandwich cover construction is pinned to those brass liners. All right. And that is basically the construction of this first club knife released by Paddy Pals group for the Collection Club. Beautiful grain structure. Now this side here, the pile side, you can see you've got longer grain structure, okay, and a beautiful brown finish for the wood scales. But if we turn it over and look at this scale, notice that the grain structure is more of a tight, smaller grain structure, almost like what you would notice in oak. But again, this is Ekki wood. All right. Now again, these knives are manufactured by Arthur Wright and Sons. That would be Michael and Ashley Harrison, a father-son team, along with their assistant, now full-time knife maker, was an apprentice for them, Beth, on their staff, and they make these out of Sheffield, England. The great part about this is we are getting a traditional, handcrafted, handmade knife out of Sheffield, England for an affordable price. Over in England, you can get these knives for around 40 to 50 pounds. Once you include the postage and fees to ship these to the States, you're looking somewhere around the $70 to $85 mark. They're going to vary, I'm sure, as we go on and have more knives released. And let's face it, Arthur Wright and Sons needs to make a few bucks or two for themselves, and I don't discourage that one bit. So you are getting a high-quality, handcrafted knife for a very affordable, reasonable price and a good steel, and beautiful, exceptionally crafted wood scales with pin construction. So this is the first knife in the series. Again, it's called the Tackler. Now, unfortunately, I don't think any more Tacklers exist, as far as they have all been sold as part of the original first release of the club knife. However, maybe occasionally you will find one up for sale on the secondary market. I don't think there are any plans to re-release this knife anytime soon, as they are hoping to basically have additional new designs and patterns produced, maybe 2 to 3 a year, I think is their goal. And again, the whole purpose of this was to provide a collectible club knife series released on a regular basis and help support the Sheffield, England knife industry. And I think those are lofty goals. So there you go, the first knife in the series and the 6th one in our open hashtag response to Tobias Gibson over at Knife Chats. This is the PPP Club Knife number 1, the Tackler, in Ekki wood scales and C70 or 01 tool steel for the blade. I'm going with C70. I think that is the steel that they're using on most of the knives here to date. That's going to do it for me. Byron at Splitting Slices saying split a slice with a friend soon. If you're curious on the weight of this knife, it weighs 2.3 ounces, a fairly light carry for a traditional knife. And until my next video, everybody please take care.